All right. Let's see. It's actually just about 1 o'clock by my watch. I'm calling the May 19th, 2025 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. Could you call a roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Henningsen,
Here.
Mr. Stoner,
Here.
Mr. Hancock,
Here.
Mr. Matsuno,
Here.
and Mr. Vanderwerf is absent.
All right. Thanks a lot. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The public may access and participate in the meeting electronically. Instructions for doing so are posted on the Albemarle County website at the Albemarle County calendar. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Both is provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Staff will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. If applicants in the meeting room have team members attending virtually who will need to present, please make that known when you come to the podium. Everyone who is participating virtually, please mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
No.
I do. I am involved with the first item, Christian Aid Mission. So when that comes up, I will hand things over to Frank and step aside. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review?
Nobody online.
All right. We do not have any consent agenda items today, and we do not have any work sessions today. So we're going to move on to our first regular review item. We have two today. First is ARB 2025-07, Christian Aid Mission.
We don't need that gavel.
Okay, this is
Are
a
you ready,
proposal.
Margaret? Yep.
Yes, this is a proposal to construct a new office building for the Christian Aid Mission at the existing site located on the north side of Route 250 West. It's at 255 Bob Finley Way. This is a street view showing existing buildings as they're seen from the entrance corridor. And the building here circled in red is the one that would be redeveloped. The footprint of the new building would not exceed the footprint of that existing building. The scale, forms, and features of the proposed building design meet the guidelines with a series of bays with alternating materials that create rhythm, scale, and break up the mass of the building. Overall, the proposed building is expected to contribute to orderly and attractive development along the corridor. The proposed building materials include brown brick, tan and bronze metal, and a composite wood grain siding. The brick is a connection to the historic architecture of the county, and the metal and wood panels are used on buildings in the area. There are mature trees on the site. Many are proposed to remain, and the landscape plan shows trees to be added primarily at the interior of the site. Some trees are also added along the frontage, and they will help fill out the existing condition, which is not really standard. There's a gap also in the perimeter parking trees northwest of the building, and there are no shrubs along perimeters of travelways and parking areas that are readily visible from the street, so we've recommended those additions. These are some perspective views from the entrance corridor street. And our recommendation is for approval with the revisions listed in the staff report. Now, this is the first time you've seen this proposal, but the changes we recommended are mostly simple ones, or it's just standard requirements that don't really require big changes to the design. So we've recommended approval, but having those changes come back to you for a second review is totally doable if that's what you prefer. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Margaret. We'll start with Tara.
So Margaret, just to clarify, the footprint is the same, but the structure is intended to be different.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Frank?
Don't have any questions. Thanks.
Just curious, so this isn't an initial site plan. This is like a full certificate of appropriateness for the architecture.
It would be a certificate of appropriateness for the architecture. In terms of site plan, it's, I guess,
Staying the same.
technically a major amendment.
Okay, but no
But the
major
footprint is the same.
changes to the site plan.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now, if we have the applicant has a presentation.
My name is Mark Kessner, Henningsen Kessner Architects, and we don't have a duplicate presentation, but I just wanted to thank you all for your time today and what you do every other week, your service to the community, and appreciate the professionalism. Christian Aid's been around since the 50s, headquartered here in Charleston, and they're a wonderful group of folks that we've been working with since May of 21. We have extensively studied the entire site, and early on, we thought about repurposing the two other buildings that you see on the site behind this building. Post-COVID, program changed, needs changed. We reevaluated the site, and it became apparent that the theater building, which is where we are now, was the appropriate site. Early on, we were going to keep more of that building, but most of it is going to be demolished at this point. We're still keeping a portion of the basement. And we are going to be building within the footprint, as Margaret said. Studied materials extensively, massing, the articulation of the bays, and just, want to be harmonious with the context, and, provide a great building for the client and an attractive building for the corridor. So here to answer questions. Margaret, thank you for that great presentation. Again, appreciate all of your help.
Thank you. Now we'll go, have any questions for the applicant, Frank?
I don't know.
No. Tara?
No questions. Thanks.
I don't have any questions either. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment either in person or online?
No one online.
No. Okay. The ARB will now go into discussion. We'll start with Tara.
Thank you. I appreciate the applicant's, proposal and their submission. I thought it was very thorough. I also appreciate the way in which the architecture responds to the surrounding context. I think it's, certainly harmonizes well with what is on the corridor. Will make a nice addition, and I think is a sort of sensitive use of treating what's on the site very judiciously, and making sure that that the existing site remains largely as it is. I think that's a nice way to approach it. So I don't really have any significant concerns. I appreciate the applicant's attention to the massing of the project as well. I think that's pretty successful. I thought their material selection makes nice references to the context, and I don't have any particular concerns about it. So I appreciate the application.
Thanks, Tara. Frank?
Yeah, I would echo Tara's comments. I think it's an attractive building. I think you guys have done a good job with breaking the scale down. I think material selection is completely appropriate. And it's a nice sort of contemporary with a traditional sort of palette. So yeah, I don't have any critique other than positive.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues. I think it's a nice building. I think if anything, this site could handle a bigger building. So I think, it's a pretty open site on
And if you look contextually at, the medical office buildings, a couple doors down, there's some pretty big buildings on this part of the corridor, but maybe it's a nice transition building as you get to the more rural, going from is it Northridge, headed west. So I agree. I don't have any additional comments or questions. We want to take a look at the recommended motion.
So our recommendation was for approval of the certificate of appropriateness with the changes listed in the staff report.
Thank you.
I think most of these are landscape items. I don't have any particular, it sounds like the applicant has no issue. I think those all sound appropriate, so.
Okay.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for ARB 2025-07 Christian Aid Mission with the conditions listed in the staff report with no amendments.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Could we call the vote?
Yes, Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Officially relinquish my duties as chair.
I just want to reiterate, I did not threaten or otherwise influence any board members to achieve the result on the last item. Our second item is ARB 2025-10, 1906 to 1920 Avon Street Extended. Martha.
This is a proposal to construct a 21-unit residential subdivision with associated site improvements. The location is the west side of Avon Street Extended. It is just north of the Avon Park development and across the street from the Spring Hill Village development. This is a street view of the property. There are currently two residences and a few outbuildings on the site. The proposed development includes multifamily units in the back as you view it from the entrance quarter street, and mostly detached units, including one of the existing residences closer to the street. Architectural plans were not included with the initial site plan submittal, but 5 of the detached units and 2 attached units are oriented with the rear and/or side elevations facing the entrance quarter. That's not totally out of character in this immediate area. There are other residences here with their backs to the street, but most of those are not completely blank elevations, and there is landscaping along the street to help buffer that. The plan originally submitted for this application shows an existing overhead power line parallel to the street and close to the property line, and also a new sanitary line and a 20-foot easement proposed along the frontage. Street trees are not typically allowed in that type of easement, and the location of the easement would place the street trees 20 feet and more away from the corridor. In addition to the sanitary line and easement, there are small stormwater facilities proposed for each of the lots that have entrance corridor frontage. Those would be located in a private stormwater easement between the building site and the sanitary easement, and that would further hinder the ability to meet frontage planting requirements. For those reasons, we did not recommend approval of the initial site plan. However, this morning, the applicant shared a revised plan that shifts the easement to the west and provides a 6-foot planting zone, which contains shade and understory trees. That's a big improvement. There would still be potentially a conflict with the overhead power line, so some additional change might be needed there. This is a section that was also provided this morning. It helps clarify the relationship of the site to this entrance quarter street. It shows how those single-family detached units will sit well above the street. That could create a potential scale issue as viewed from the street, but trees, again, along the frontage would help offset that. So our original recommendation was to not recommend approval of the plan, but with the shifting of the new easement and trees as shown on the revised plan or something close to it, we now think it would be okay to recommend approval of the initial site plan. I can bring up revised recommendations when you're ready to look at them.
All right, thanks a lot, Margaret. I guess we'll see if anyone has any questions, starting with Frank Hancock,
I don't. Thank you, Margaret.
Frank Stoner.
I don't either. Thank you.
All right, Taro.
I don't, thanks so much.
Sorry, Margaret, I don't have any questions either. If the applicant has a presentation, now would be the time.
Hey, good afternoon, Justin Shimp, engineer for the project. I have online, should be Kelsey and Richard.
They are.
Okay.
No, they're both gone. Oh, yes, they are. They're there.
Gave up. See if I can get this up to the right spot here. Should just drag it up. Is the screen set?
Be there.
Ah, there it is.
Just to let you know that Frank has called in on his, Richard has called in on his iPhone. So you will not be able to show any slides while he's talking. If he needs to.
Got
talk.
it. Okay. Well, again, Justin Shimp, I'm the engineer. Richard Price is the architect and the designer. Kelsey Schleim's planner in my office is also on the call. And we probably don't need to overcomplicate this because it was simply a matter of omission of some information that should have been on the site plan submittal, which is the landscape, which is required. And so we have to provide it. There's probably one interesting question here about how it can be provided. We can talk about that if the board wants to. Otherwise, we're content to move it forward and work as we do with the staff on the landscaping plan to address that. And there would be a future ARB submittal of some kind for the multifamily units in the back, which we would look at, how visible those are, but that would be done with a separate submittal. So you all would see that again, regardless. Kelsey or Richard, do you want to flip through these slides or would you like me to just go through them since you may have a hard time presenting?
He can't present while he.
Okay, let me just.
Yeah,
go
just
through
I think it'd be best if you went through it. Thank you.
The site, you saw some of the maps, and it is useful to know there is your kind of single family, similar type housing around here. So that's going to be a little different as far as type of structures adjacent to the road. You saw in the prior pictures, there are some single family houses or single family attached that already are adjacent. The below up there, it shows you kind of scale this site relative to those around it. Same view, this is the sort of street view looking up the road. The one thing I'll touch on is this power line along there. We can just have a quick discussion about the trees for, that's looking north, flipping around, looking south. On the right is that blue house that remains. The two units that are attached go up behind that. So I think those will be pretty, not very visible. They'll be behind that house. And then the single families, let's see if I have it here. So this lot 15 and 16 ended up behind the house here. So these other lots 9 through 13 will be visible. Those are the back of the single family homes. Those are illustrated in this 3D exhibit here relative to Avon Road here. And then this is the cross section demonstrating the relationship between the houses. There's bioretention cells that would be installed at each house as part of the stormwater strategy. Those are landscaped also. So you do have sort of depth of landscaping that those require plantings in them. So if you were to go back to the illustration here, we're going to have the required street trees and we're going to have some kind of element of landscaping in these bioretentions. I think the only thing that I would like maybe a little feedback from the board on, certainly we're going to comply with the requirements, but there's an interesting opportunity here. If I were to go back to the picture, there's a good example of it. The power lines, the single phase power line, it's up pretty high. We probably could plant trees along this edge of the sidewalk here, maybe medium trees rather than large trees, and get a landscaping closer to the street. It probably falls within the technical easement. We didn't find an easement for this power line. The survey has sort of prescriptive type easement. So those trees would be subject to some potential, pruning over time, but if the right species were selected, they may be able to kind of live below the power line. Since the power line is fairly high, you've got maybe a 5-foot grade increase from the sidewalk up. So I think if we don't do that, otherwise what we would do is go back to this picture, is probably have to adjust the sewer easement, the trees, and move the trees back further into the site, up the hill further, to avoid the power line. I think either could be successful. I sort of imagine with the layers we have, maybe having trees down close to the sidewalk that are shorter, and then up the hill, those other trees might be a better look. But I think that's something that, I guess, Margaret, in the past, you've allowed smaller trees at a tighter spacing in certain circumstances. Is that correct?
I think that has been done.
So, we would look to the boards if they had a strong opinion one way or the other. We're happy to comply. We want landscaping between ourselves and the street. We'll provide the required landscaping. Let me just, before I flip back to you all, Kelsey or Richard, do you want to hop on and talk about any of the examples? Richard has done a variety of other projects that he may want to talk about.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So Richard is having a little bit of a trouble with his microphone, so I don't believe he's able to connect. But in Justin's slides, he also brought up a few examples of just other projects that Richard has worked on. Give it 1130 on East High Street, and then River Bluff Circle in Charlottesville. Those both are exceptional examples of the type of landscaping that he typically incorporates into his projects. So we just wanted to make that known. Thank you.
I think, is my microphone working now?
Yes.
All right, so we finally got that to work. Okay, sorry, I'm here. Any questions?
Okay, all right, thank you. If you all, we'll pitch back to the screen.
I can't talk then anymore.
Understood, yes. If the board has any questions that Richard or Kelsey could answer. These are the examples. You may be familiar with the site on East High. It's fairly close by. They're very heavily landscaped, and the bio retention cells in the middle there, River Bluff, has these sort of similar concepts. So there'll be an element of landscaping up in those bio retention cells, similar to what you see on the screen here. So I think that's all I had. Just, we're happy to move forward however the board sees fit.
All right. Thanks a lot. I guess we'll start with Frank Stoner, if you have any questions for the applicant.
No, thanks. The only question I have is multifamily is apartment or townhouse?
It's a stacked townhome, basically. I
Okay.
don't know if, in their building code, I think it's going to count as a 2-family dwelling.
Okay,
I think it'd be treated as a, multifamily per Albemarle County as far as our, the review goes.
that'd be 4 stories on the backside, 3 on the front, or?
They're just 3. Let me go back. So they're 3 floors. So they're really, they may drop off a little grade in the back, but from the entrance corridor view, it's 3 stories on the street facing towards Avon.
Great, thanks.
All right. Tara?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Frank?
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment?
No, not. Well,
In that case, the ARB will now go into discussion. I guess we will start with Tara, if you have any comments.
Thanks, Justin, Richard, for the presentation. I think that given the changes to the street tree planting, I think that does a lot to help make this a nice addition to the corridor. I don't have a particular opinion on the location of the trees and the size and how they're distributed around the site, but I think that their incorporation, is what makes this can bring this kind of into line with some of the other developments in the area, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Frank Hancock?
Sure, I agree with Taro. I think it's a nice application. I think it's a pretty creative application for what looks to be a pretty challenging little site. Given what we saw with the updated exhibit today, I think that is entirely appropriate. And in fact, might be the better solution just because it's a little further up the hill as far as being right up against the sidewalk and might have a little bit more space to grow. And even so, it's still relatively close to the entrance corridor, I think. But just because we've seen that, to me, I think that would make sense. But yeah, I don't really have any other comments. I think it's a nice project.
All right, thanks. Frank?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a nice project. I don't know whether the trees, I'm not sure if they had a spec on them, whether evergreens or deciduous. Do you know? Sorry, I should have asked before.
Oh, and the bioretention plantings?
No, the street tree planting.
Oh, they would be
These are all
deciduous.
deciduous?
Yeah, I think it'd be some kind of large or medium shade trees and then your typical sort of understory ornamentals.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it's an interesting question as to whether to, makes more sense to bring it closer to the street and go with something that's more opaque. I don't know how much really deciduous trees are gonna do up the hill from a car's perspective, because you're gonna be looking under the canopy, would be my guess. But I'd be curious to get your thoughts as the landscape architect there. I think it's consistent with the corridor. I don't have any issues with the plan in general. Obviously, the architecture will be important just because you will be looking at the back of the buildings. But I think my sense of Richard's work in the past is he gets it. He's very attentive and I think has done beautiful work elsewhere. So I would assume this would be consistent with his other projects. The tree, yeah, I guess I'm more inclined almost to think to bring it closer and make it more opaque, more evergreen, but that's just my opinion.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I agree. I think like closer to the street or closer to the buildings, either one would work depending on the species of the tree. I kind of agree with Frank. I think I have a slight preference for it being closer, but I think either one would work. And other than that, I don't really have any concerns. It seems like it'll be a nice, it's a nicely laid out project. So I guess if we could take a look at the recommended motion.
Okay, so the recommendation is to forward the recommendations in the staff report to the agent for the site review committee. The primary recommendation there is to recommend approval of the initial site plan based on the revised landscape plan presented at today's meeting. Then have a series of comments to be addressed with the final site plan. I've struck through a few of these. I'll just point those out. The first one was to provide site sections, since we've had one submitted this morning. I've struck through that here. I've also taken out two of the real general landscape comments, the one saying revise the layout to allow for required landscaping. Another saying provide a landscape plan showing how landscaping will be used to establish an appropriate appearance. And the one regarding the biocells. I've added to number 7 to reference the revised layout presented today, and I've added a new number 8 to indicate if there's an easement associated with the overhead power line. If there is, provide confirmation that the easement holder approves of the proposed landscaping.
All right, thanks. I guess give everybody a minute just to see if there's any tweaks or anything that anybody wants to make.
On the question of the location of the trees, number 7 says the revised layout is acceptable, but it doesn't restrict the applicant to only using that approach.
Yeah, I think that's accurate and it will come back to you for review again. So you always have an opportunity to comment again.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's a smart way to do it.
All right, well, in that case, does anybody like to make a motion?
I will move toward the recommendations outlined in the staff report. The following amendments, item 1, the plan will be revised per the landscape plan submitted today. Item 7, add the sentence revised layout presented on May 19th, 2025 meeting is acceptable. And item 8, indicate if there's an easement associated with the overhead power line. If there is, provide confirmation that the easement holder approves of the proposed landscaping.
All right, thanks. Second?
I'll second.
All right, if we could put that to a vote.
Okay, Mr. Matsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, moving on to other business, first of which would be approval of the May 5th, 2025 minutes. Anybody like to make a motion on that?
So moved.
All right, and I'll second that. If we could put that to a vote.
Yes, Mr. Matsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Do any board members or staff have any other items they'd like to discuss? All right. In that case, the next ARB meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 2nd, 2025. Guess I'll just run down the table and see if people think they can attend or not. Tara,
Yes, I think so.
right?
I think so. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I think so too. So in that case, the meeting is adjourned until our next meeting on Monday, June 2nd, 2025. And it is, I'll say 1:32. Thanks a lot.